What up, good people, and you bad people too? It is me, the MATTWOOD is, and what y'all looking at is Johnny D from YO. Pound that tire with the 16-pound sledgehammer, y'all. It's a part of our workout. So while we were, doing the wood chips, we stopped, take a break, and grab that sledgehammer, y'all. So it's quite an intense farmyard workout, as I like to call it. But anyway, I like to call this call the leadership call. And we got two special guests on the call. We got Scott Make It Rain Fang, our host, and we got Donald Coven, aka Coach DJ, y'all. And they're going to be talking about some great leadership tips and techniques to help us navigate through this life and this whole leadership thing. So I want you to sit back, enjoy the journey, and me and the Dogs in Youngstown, we're going to take y'all on a tour, y'all. Can you dig it? And watch me pound that thing. Watch me pound that thing, y'all. 50 years old, pounding that thing. Now on with the show.
This is Scott Fain with tonight's leadership call. Here today with Coach DJ, author of Maximize Leadership in 3D, Discover, Develop, and Deploy Leaders. How you doing tonight, Coach DJ?
I'm doing very well. Excited to be with you.
Well, thank you very much. Just looking forward to hearing your take on some of these questions we have for you. So let's get right into it.
Yes, sir.
Now, what's the difference between a leader and a boss?
The term boss gets its nature or origin kind of, at least in today's vernacular, it's derived in ego, or it's evolved into kind of an egotistical term. Boss is a me, from a me perspective, where a leader is from a we, us, our perspective. Boss insinuates primarily one-way communication, where a leader is two-way communication, be it listening and speaking both ways. Okay, we have to lay down our ego where leadership is concerned in order to focus on the needs of those that are following us. Whereas the boss, it comes from the me perspective, my thoughts, my ideas, my instruction, my direction, looking to me for answers. Where leadership is we, us, togetherness, we can resolve any challenge that arises. I just accept accountability.
What about the difference between a leader and a manager?
Manager is one aspect of leadership. It's more positional. When you're managing something, in most cases, you're dealing with a known set of capabilities, capacities, and standard operating processes, and you're just managing to the ideal condition. When you're leading and in leadership, it involves trailblazing, constructing, developing, creating. So there is no known capacity or capability. You're devising the strategy. Two completely different veins. Manager requires various traits and aspects of leadership, and you're fulfilling a leadership position or role, but it doesn't involve or encompass the totality of leadership necessarily.
What are the top 5 skills that a leader must develop if they want to maximize their leadership influence?
Great question. There's a plethora of skill sets and traits that are required for a leader to be effective. If I had to narrow it down to the top 5, I probably would start with self-awareness. That's a trait that we must have in order to first realize that we are the leader in whatever scenario or system that we're part of. Then I would say the ability to think critically. Must develop our critical thinking skills in order to devise plans, and recognize patterns and avenues to pursue in order to achieve the ultimate goal or objective. Then as a leader, we have to be able to articulate and communicate vision. We can't effectively express where we're trying to go, what we need to do in order to accomplish what we're setting out to do then we can't motivate or inspire those that we're leading. Then we have to be able to develop those around us. If we can't raise the level of the standard of performance or expectation in some way for those that we're leading, then we're just dragging. So we have to be able to raise the standard, establish the standard, and develop those around us. The fifth, I would say, we have to know how to inspire trust and build trust in the relationships that we have within our team, department, business, or organization. Those would be the top five, I would say, if I had to choose five. We want to be self-aware of who we are as leaders.
Mm-hmm.
We have to be able to think critically. We have to be able to establish and build trust. We have to be able to develop those around us and articulate and communicate vision.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate you for repeating it. Definitely want to hear those again and again because those are really important. Let's go on to the next one. What are some of the steps that a leader can take in order to boost the morale of a team?
Wow. Take care of their own emotional and mental state, so they're always in the correct state of mind to achieve and conquer and overcome whatever it is that they need to set the example and the tone. And then they have to establish the rules of order. They have to educate their team or group on how to conduct themselves in their environment, because every action and all of the words that we speak, that impacts the environment and the morale of the team. So once we establish that standard and have a mode of operation, then we hold others accountable to the standard. And that automatically lifts the group.
Okay.
And it may happen sequentially in steps, depending on what level the team members are on, what level of understanding, where their morale is, what emotional and psychological control each member has.
I like that it starts with you, the person, the leader.
Always starts with you.
What role does momentum play in leadership?
They can be a leader's greatest ally, just like in team sports. If you've ever been at a basketball game, football game, the crowd notices the momentum. The players, the bench, the coaches, you feel momentum shifts throughout the course of a game. Even an individual sport, a tennis match, you can feel and sense a shift in momentum, the confidence swell on either side from either opponent. The same as in leadership. I developed some equations to kind of get an understanding of the effectiveness of a leader's influence. And one of the equations, I said CMI, and those initials stand for critical mass influence. And basically, it's based off the economic principle of break even, and where you're judging the slope of a leader's influence. Is it more negatively sloping or more positively sloping? At some point, it's going to tip the scales. Is your influence, has it impacted to the level that you have a majority performing at the expectation that you have, or a minority? At some point, it's become a majority, and where the influence takes over and allows the momentum to sway the minority and uplift their behavior, or kind of get them off the bus. Because
okay.
So momentum is key. It's major.
Okay. Yeah, that's really connecting with me. Critical mass influence.
Critical mass.
Hmm.
That's in chapter 2. A lot of people in my book, Maximize Leadership, they get kind of lost because I introduce a mathematical concept for calculating the effectiveness of a leader's influence. And I haven't really seen that to date. It's not 100% science, because once I get into the attributes and those character traits that we spoke about earlier, those are what really drive the numbers of true effectiveness, not tactics, not from a boss weaponizing my authority. I'm actually influencing and maximizing the effectiveness of my influence. And I just generated equations to calculate that. Because sometimes what we don't measure, we don't value.
That's true. Okay. That is definitely true. Why do some leaders fail to delegate tasks?
Trust. The number one reason is a lack of trust in your members. It also can stem from disorganization. I don't have it in a systematic format that I can, in good conscience, hand it off. I'm handing off fragments that don't make sense to those individuals that I would be likely to hand it off to. But by and large, it's trust. I don't trust that I would get the results that I desire if I hand it off to this person. In all actuality, I may not be as equipped to articulate the expectation or the mode of operation that I expect. Therefore, I don't get the results or the outcome that I'd hoped for. So I decline in passing off or delegating those tasks.
Mm-hmm. What can a leader do to avoid becoming burned out?
Delegate tasks. Develop other leaders. Not from a selfish perspective, but in order for a team to be most effective, in order for you to maximize leadership in 3 dimensions, you have to discover other potential leaders. Then you have to develop those leaders. And then you have to deploy them to accomplish those tasks that are too great in number for 1, 2, 3 members.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I believe you have a couple questions coming up, and I'll save part of that answer for the next one.
Okay, well, let's do that. Can you spend a few moments talking about the importance of following up?
I had a lead supervisor that reported to me share something with me. He said, I inspect what I expect. Over time, if you're a leader or a manager, and you just quote your expectations, just share your expectations with your team, but you never follow up or inspect the results of what you expect from them or out of them, then pretty soon they will put forth the effort to fulfill those expectations, because there's never going to be any ramifications, because you don't follow up to see if they've completed the task to your expectation. So following up is critical to the process. You haven't completed the process as a leader unless you follow and follow through.
Why do so many people do that?
They don't understand. They don't understand that leadership begins and ends with them. Once they've passed out the instruction or the assignment, they think their job is done. Now, if those that I've delegated those instructions to or assigned those responsibilities to, if they don't fulfill them to meet the expectation, then it's on them. And the corrective action is all theirs to receive. As the leader, it's your assignment to delegate and to lead. But it's also part of the assignment to follow up and to confirm that the goal is achieved. And if not, why? And how do we fill the gap? So it's unfulfilled assignment on the part of the leader. Don't follow up.
There's an entire process to it. What tools or systems can help leaders keep in touch and follow up with the people that they influence the most?
You want to audit, you want to inspect, you should be a mentor, because part of the goal is to build and develop other leaders. So when you're checking back in and monitoring progress, all those assignments and those tasks that you delegated, you're right in alignment with following up. It has to be systematic. I think I mentioned on the last call, I developed a 5-part system where you engage, educate your members on the standards of the department, team, group, or organization. Then you equip them, you grant them the authority to execute, and then you encourage them because they have everything they need, and then you emancipate them by giving them leadership opportunities. Through that whole process, you're following up continuously because you have to make sure you're connected. You can't engage them without it being a two-way street. You need feedback. That's a form of following up. You can't educate them without quizzing and evaluating them to make sure that the understanding has permeated throughout the organization. You can't equip them without understanding if they're capable of doing what you've asked them to do or what you've assigned them to do. So any true form of encouragement, you should kind of monitor or gauge if you're having an impact, if you're actually influencing those that you're trying to inspire or encourage. And then the proof will be in the pudding once you emancipate them to lead.
So the process is always a constant form of checking in throughout. Okay, yeah. So engage.
That's not engage, educate, equip, encourage, emancipate.
Okay.
And after over time, that's not sequential. You'll be doing that, be executing those elements continuously. That's how you cultivate a culture of leadership and leadership development.
Okay. Who are your favorite leaders throughout history and why?
I don't tend to lean too heavily toward the presidential and world leaders, although Angela Merkel would be one, along with Barack Obama. Not because of their party affiliations necessarily, but because of the mass volume of people under their jurisdiction that they try to appeal to. I believe as leaders, whether political, religious, academic, athletic, no matter the genre or industry, a leader should make the attempt to appeal to the widest body of or audience under their jurisdiction, because they're the leader of that particular body of people. So those that make the attempt to appeal to the widest subset of their audience, I have an appreciation for.
Let me interrupt you here. Just for those that aren't familiar, Angela Merkel, you're talking about the former Prime Minister of Germany, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And of course, former President Barack Obama.
Barack Obama. Absolutely.
Please continue.
In terms of sports figure, I would say Phil Jackson. I was very impressed with Phil Jackson's ability to utilize multiple styles of leadership, depending on who he was coaching. He didn't just coach the most elite of the elite players in Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant. He had a complete team, and he utilized Tex Winter's triangle offense to bring out the best of each team member, and then allow it to exploit the skill sets, abilities, and athleticism of a Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, Shaquille O'Neal, Scottie Pippen. But you had B.J. Armstrong, you had Derek Fisher, you had Robert Ory's, you had Horace Grant, Dennis Rodman's along the way that maybe weren't as gifted, but had certain talent, certain traits and abilities that could help bridge the gap and allow team success.
Mm-hmm. I'm a big fan of Phil Jackson too.
Mm-hmm. My previous pastor, the Honorable Bishop Norman L. Wagner, he was a dynamic leader where he understood the power of critical thinking, not just biblical teaching, but he taught his members and parishioners how to think critically. And that's a gift that a leader passes on to his member or followers that you can't take away. Once you've been trained on how to think, not just necessarily what to think, but how to think critically, you become powerful.
I've got one more question for you that you're not familiar with. And it's interesting that you brought up your former pastor. What does this scripture mean to you? Proverbs 4:7. Wisdom is the principal thing. Therefore, get wisdom, and with all thy getting, get understanding.
Wow. If I had to put a number to that, I would say 90% of the battle in leadership. You have to really seek discernment. I think it really helps if you believe in a higher power, higher calling. I believe in God, Jesus Christ, my faith is Christianity. I know I didn't get here by myself, so I have to seek wisdom without. We have history, and we have science. I started my professional career as an electrical engineer, so I understand science and the fundamentals and the foundational principles that it's built upon. So I have an earnest respect for science. I was raised and brought up in the Apostolic Pentecostal Church, so I have a strong faith and spiritual background. I'm an academician. I have a bachelor's and a master's in business administration at my MBA. So I understand knowledge and information. But the Bible says that wisdom is the principal thing. Therefore, get wisdom. With all that getting, get understanding. If you're going to lead, a prerequisite is understanding. If I'm going to direct, I must first be operating from a set of directions. That's part of wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
We have the quote that knowledge is power. I think applied knowledge is more apropos or even more powerful. Knowledge can be information. We've got an abundance of information and access to data and information with AI and the internet and all of that. But how to apply that information or that knowledge is more powerful. The equation power equals IR. Or, we get into electricity and current and resistance.
Mm-hmm.
In and of itself, current is dangerous. That's what causes us to get electrocuted. But it doesn't become power or work until it's multiplied with resistance. So the same with wisdom. I can do a lot of work. I can do a lot of activities based on information. But wisdom is, how do I apply that information to get the desired result?
Application is key. What you're
Application
saying.
is key. Absolutely.
Because I do like that when it comes to information and knowledge. We're stumbling over ourselves with tons of knowledge falling out everywhere, but not everybody applies that information effectively.
Correct.
I want to go back and touch on a couple of follow-ups that I had for you. The one that keeps coming from my notepad here, you had mentioned about improving critical thinking skills and stuff like that. And I like to think that I use critical thinking skills, but it's definitely something that I feel like myself and I know a lot of other people could use. Like, what are a couple of tips or just how to begin really learning to think critically? You know, like what would be a few ways to start doing that?
Start from a place of self-awareness by understanding what you know and what you believe yourself to not know. And there's some things that we have to unlearn because our worldview is shaped through our experiences and what we're exposed to, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes our exposure is limited. So we're ignorant and we don't even understand that we're ignorant. Daniel Kahneman, I believe the author's name, wrote a book called Thinking Fast and Slow. And he talks about our system 1 and system 2 thinking. Where system 1 would be more like our reflex of thinking, our subconscious, of what we immediately comes to mind. Those who we actively trust, off the cuff, our gut reaction. That's based on a set of established norms in our exposure and our experiences. If we tap into our system 2 thinking, it's more statistically correct. But the greater the pressure, the shorter the lead time that we have to respond or generate an answer, we rely more heavily on our system 1 thinking. And it's less accurate than we would want to believe. Because statistically, we have our go-to people, we have our framework of whether we align ourselves red or blue politically, whatever our religious affiliation is, whatever our familial upbringing, that helps shape our worldview. And so our ability to think critically is based from there. If we don't exercise that and kind of learn our limitations and apply the wisdom or the knowledge to specific applications, whether we do the exercise mentally or we practice overtly in real life, and just not what would Jesus do, but what we need to do in handling this situation. Various scenarios, word puzzles, things that tap into our mind and allow us to problem solve. That develops our critical thinking as well.
I remember last week you mentioned a touch on self-awareness and knowing yourself, and that seems like a really important step when it comes to leadership and critical thinking, and a lot of the different things that you've been talking about is getting to know who you are.
It truly does. As a young person, I've held numerous leadership roles. I'm the oldest of 5. I was team captain of my Pee Wee League football team, quarterback, captain of a middle school basketball and high school team, student council president, class president, an RA, dorm director in college, part of the student council. When I became an engineer, they also used their engineers as coordinators or supervisors. And then from then on in my career, I became manager and beyond. Sat on boards. So I've but primarily held leadership roles throughout my life and career. So my perspective is from that of the leader. I didn't find out till I was an adult that my name, Donald, actually means leader.
Oh, it does?
Yeah, I didn't realize that. I ran from that name. My family, friends, they've all called me DJ. It wasn't until I moved down to the South, and held high-level leadership roles that I felt it necessary to go by Don. In fact, my email that I established 20 years ago is Last Don, and I didn't do that for the Godfather or anything like that. I was letting my father know that my son wouldn't be named Donald. He would be the third because I'm the second. I would be the last one in this lineage. He almost disowned me for it, but that's a Yahoo account, by the way, that I still use. That tells you how dated it is.
Still relevant, though.
My son is Dylan, and he's 21. But those leadership roles gave me a certain vantage point that I understood that early on in my childhood and early teen years, I was very, not introverted, but I was quiet. I wasn't as much of a talker as I became because I was very introspective about learning and about understanding patterns, not just in systems, but in people. I learned to listen very well. And I believe that period kind of helped jumpstart or boost my critical thinking ability, which has fared well for me when it comes to my leadership roles and the expectations therein.
There was one other thing I wanted to ask you. It related to, you had mentioned about having a lack of trust, like why people don't delegate. And that was one, it's like, how do you advise someone who has that problem? Like I've been there, where you have a situation, you need some help, you need to delegate, but you don't quite trust that the person's going to do it the way you would do it. Obviously they won't, but like, how do you get over that hump to learn to just let go and do that?
It's just an exercise in, am I going to lead from faith or am I going to lead from fear? And this person that I'm potentially delegating to, they're on my team, correct? If they're on my team and I understand that, then they mean me and my team no harm. And they only want what's best. So with my guidance, coaching, articulation of what the expectations are, if they need support in various areas, then I'm there to lend that support or instruction or development. But I've got to start somewhere. And I can start small and build from there. But I have to start somewhere, and I have to eliminate or reduce greatly that fear in me, which will in turn reduce the fear in them, fear of failure, the lack of trust, etc.
Okay. No, I appreciate that. That is good advice.
The energy we exude fills the spaces we encounter. The energy we exude fills the spaces we encounter. So if I exude trust, faith, and confidence, the spaces I encounter will be filled with faith, confidence, trust.
And your team's stronger and you're doing a much better thing, doing a much better job. That's what's up.
I have a greater capacity to take on more because I'm able to delegate, accomplish more together.
Well, I want to thank you. You've given me a lot to chew on this evening, a lot to think about. And I really appreciate you, again, spending some time with me this evening, doing these leadership calls, because this is a topic that I think definitely needs more information out there. Not that there's not a lot of leadership stuff, but I'm just saying we need to, it's like a thing to keep pouring into.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Absolutely. It's my passion. It's a pleasure to be with you, Scott. It's my passion. Not just because I've done it in all those different roles I talked about, but also because I'm passionate about people. And if you're passionate about people, Leadership is the one way that you can impact and influence them the most. But you got to have something to give them.
Right. Right.
Otherwise, you just become a boss.
And we know that boss is about me.
Yeah.
And that's not leading a team. That's just being you.
Yep.
All right. Well, I want to say thank you again this evening. If you can go out and get Maximize Leadership in 3D from Barnes & Noble or Amazon, and definitely come back with us next time for another leadership call. And when you leave out of here and you're done listening to this, go out and lead with purpose.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much.